we have given Billy Napier a lot of check marks, feel like he is ready for this opportunity to take over a major program. And now he's got a Florida roster that might need some help on the recruiting trail, something that I'm sure we'll talk about. Billy Napier has plenty of experience doing. And now for other schools that might have wanted Billy Napier, Virginia Tech, for example, he is off the market. So a lot to get to, Bud. What really stood out as things moved quickly from, hey, yeah, Napier's the front runner to now it's looking like this thing could even happen officially in the next hour or so even.
Sure. Chip, I mean, I feels like we were just talking about this last night. So we oftentimes see that schools will hire somewhat of the opposite of what they just fired, right? If you have an offensive guy, if offense was the problem, okay, like let's go get defense. And I think the example here with Dan Mullen is Dan Mullen's recruiting was a problem. Lack of ability to run a recruiting organization of the size of Florida to produce satisfactory results. Now, Florida had a number of top 10 and top 15 classes, but Florida knows what Florida looks like when it is really, really humming recruiting class-wise. Will Muschamp had one. Urban had several. Ron Zook also had a couple that set up Florida to win a national title. When Spurrier was really into it, we really didn't have recruiting rankings in the same way back then, but I'm pretty sure those classes with like Javon Curse and those guys
I would think
would have likely.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Javon Curse would have been a 5-star type guy. And so in Billy Napier, Florida is getting somebody with a reputation of being a really good recruiter, first and foremost. He's worked under Nick Saban, I believe, twice in 2011 as an analyst, and then he came back in 2013 and spent a couple of years on that staff as well. Has worked in a Saban recruiting organization for Jim McElwain, obviously, who Florida fans probably won't like hearing that, considering how McElwain's recruiting was at UF. Although I will note that Mullen won a lot of games with McElwain's players, so some of his evaluations turned out to be fairly good in spite of the maybe the lack of star power in those classes. But he has a reputation as a tireless recruiter, somebody who's going to emphasize recruiting on his staff quite a bit, and yet he's won a good number of games there at Louisiana.
4 years, 4 Sun Belt West Division titles, 1 Sun Belt championship, a chance to go for a second. By the way, as we are sitting here, 3.5 minutes into the podcast, Florida just made it official. So that's how quickly it went. It went from us texting around brunch being like, okay, guys, so let's come up with the game plan. Is it going to happen tonight? Is it going to happen tomorrow? And then boom, boom, boom. The Gators have their man in Billy Napier. I think that the idea that he was able to take Louisiana very quickly, make it the class of the Sun Belt, and be able to maintain a relationship with a lot of the players on that roster such that they all wanted to come back. I mean, if you were looking for the coach-player relationship, even within the current roster, not just on the recruiting trail, that's got to be one thing that you look at and you walk away thinking, okay, if all those guys are going to take their super senior year, 15 of them, I believe, it was one of the highest totals in the country. Remember, the returning production at Louisiana going into the season was one of the highest in the country. That kind of retention rate suggests that those players like playing for Billy Napier, and that's something that, given the kind of ups and downs and the way that the Florida season just collapsed in the last 2 years under Dan Mullen, I think that you're excited by that. I do think that there is a difference between being very promising and also it being a surefire success, because Billy Napier could follow a former Nick Saban assistant hire path that leads to like a Kirby Smart. We could see Florida competing for SEC championships. I think I shot from the hip with, if Florida hires Billy Napier, the Gators will be playing for an SEC championship in 5 years. As we sit here and it's official, Bud, I got to say it felt like I might have gotten over my skis with that one, but I'll stick by it, at least as a prediction. 5 years, at least competing for SEC championships. Or this could go the way of a Jim McElwain. This could go the way of numerous other Nick Saban assists, Jeremy Pruitt, where you step up to that big time.
Derek
Dooley, there's another one right there. So there's a lot of different ways this can go. I will say that my sense is that Billy Napier is more likely to be Kirby-ish than it is to be Derek Dooley, Jim McElwain.
I think I would agree with that. Obviously, Kirby spent a ton of time with Saban, and he was inheriting a Georgia program that was ready to be told what they needed to do from a resources perspective, right? You don't fire Mark Richt if you're not going to go and really, really spend the money to bring in those top recruits and have somebody to organize all that money into analysts and facilities and research and all that good stuff, right? That really helps you on the fringes of recruiting. Billy Napier has been very patient in this process. I believe he did turn down Auburn last year when Auburn had all the stuff with like, hey, you should keep this guy and that guy. And they're like, I don't know if you really want to keep a coordinator who led a coup to get the current coach fired, or the guy you just fired. And I think he also wasn't super interested in South Carolina, correct? If I recall my facts from last year. And he's been pretty patient in this process, and it looks like he came out a real winner here. If Florida will come out a winner, there's going to be a couple of factors, right? Number one, why did LSU not want Billy Napier? Is it as simple as big money guys don't want to hire the Louisiana coach at LSU? Much the same as I bet you'd be very difficult to get Bull Gators bought in on hiring the FIU coach if FIU was cooking. If it's that, then LSU probably could have made a mistake here. If it's more than that, if LSU has reason not to show any interest in Billy Napier, other than Scott Woodward having a reputation for landing big fish and Napier not qualifying as a big fish, then okay, maybe Florida it did not make the right move. We don't know. Napier has some things to really like. He also has some things that are maybe a little bit concerning. They did lose to a bad Texas team this year, but by 3 scores to open the year. They won by 3 points over FCS Nichols. They won by a single score over Georgia Southern, which was in the middle of firing its coach, by 2 points at South Alabama. They crushed App State, much to their credit. They won by 1 point at Arkansas State. They won by 4 points hosting Georgia State. They crushed Liberty, which is pretty impressive. And in this past weekend, they won by 5 over Louisiana Monroe, which I think they should get a pass for, given that they have the conference championship game on deck and the rematch with App State. There are a lot of close wins here. Like, if I'm trying to be fair and balanced here, I think he'll do a really good job recruiting at Florida. I think the coaching has been led to a lot of wins.
Yeah, I think the counter isn't even like specifically what he's done, is that he just doesn't have a big sample size.
Right.
If someone from LSU comes to me and says, was it maybe an ego thing? Yeah. Like at the in-state group of 5 school, or maybe was it an ego thing with hiring a group of 5 head coach anyway? That's fine. But if you actually got to the core of it and real decision makers, Scott Woodward and his team, if they said, look, the guy's only spent 4 years as a head coach in college football, and we at LSU were looking for somebody that's going to, fill out that experience just a little bit more. And if that's going to be the reasoning, I think I can rock with that.